Are you still buying gas, groceries, and fast food without getting cash back? Why are you doing that? You could be getting cash back on all of these things. And not like, here's some credits to use at this store again and some points. This is cash. This is money on your phone that you can then deposit straight into your PayPal and then put that into your bank account. Over the last 2 years, I have earned $299.39 on Upside. Now, they have cashback offers at all kinds of places. Circle K, Lion's Choice, local random restaurants, Papa Murphy's, Phillips 66, Huck's, all kinds of places now. You can get cash back just for shopping there. All you have to do is give them the last 4 digits of your card, and then they just make sure that you use those same cards at these places and give you cash back on the app. When you go to get the app, use the invite code Janice3538. That's JANICE 3538 to get an automatic 15 cents back per gallon on your first transaction using the app. This year, I'm using the money that we save up for Christmas. It's May, and I've only used it a couple of times on things other than gas, and I already have almost $60 saved up for Christmas for the kids this year. I'm hoping to have about $200 saved up, which doesn't sound far-fetched, especially because now they're offering it at over 50 different local restaurants and 50 different nationwide companies. So like I said, get the app, Upside. That's UPSIDE, and use the invite code Janice3538 to get 15 cents per gallon back on your first transaction. Upside doesn't share any of your personal information with your referral network, so you don't have to worry about like your friends who you refer to the app knowing everything you do and everywhere you shop. Same with people who you are referred from, so don't worry. No one's going to know all the things that you buy.
You dumb fucking bitch!
Bitch.
Bitch!
You bitch! You nigger bitch!
Heinous bitch is the
Fucking bitch.
Bitch.
You're a bitch!
The bitch is back.
So this is going to be different for like a couple different reasons. First of all, it's 9:30 at night, which that's weird. No, normally I do this in the morning. So yeah. Secondly, this is going to be a fully informative episode. There will be no opinions. I mean, not really any opinions. I might say some shit here and there, but yeah, nothing too crazy. So first up is community, but this time I don't have a lighter to flick. I have a cart. So yay, everybody, you won't be able to hear this. Or just kidding, you might, because my microphone's kind of okay. So yay. All right, so exciting things that happened this week. My grandparents gave me like 40 records, and that was dope after I cleaned their house. There's like a bunch of this one guy who I don't know who the fuck he is. I think his name is Bobby Vinton. Never heard of him in my life, but apparently my grandma loved him. Like in the 80s or 70s or some fucking time. There's some Barbra Streisand, which I was pretty fucking excited about that because I fucking love Barbra Streisand. Love Babs. But we don't get our kids on all holidays, like on the holiday. So this year, we got them on the Friday after Valentine's Day. So they got a lot of stuff for Valentine's Day because we went after Valentine's Day to Walmart and just raided all the stuff that was on sale. And they got a ton of shit. So it was pretty great for them. The featured artist this week is a triple threat, and not in the normal sense. They are a triple threat in that they are a black trans queer artist, and we fucking love that. We are here for all of that. It is Young Green Bean. I fucking love that name. And the track I'm going to play is called Gemini. It's their most recent one, so let's get it.
Huh, yeah, look, two-faced, now I see your other side. Your true place, it's hard to think your mother died. You act out, it's hard to see your loving eyes. To tell the truth, it's hard loving a Gemini. My one doubt.
If you're like, why are the clips so short sometimes? That's because they are 15-second clips from TikTok. Okay, My skills are quite limited when it comes to audio editing. So I go to TikTok and I take the video and then I convert it to an MP3. So if they upload longer clips on a TikTok that are clean sound and not like them performing or like them doing an acoustic version or, you know what I mean, like the samples and shit, then I can use those. But if they don't use that, then I have to use whatever the clean sound they have on there. And sometimes it's just really tiny. Anyway, like I said, that's Young Green Bean. I'm fucking obsessed with their name. I love it. That song is called Gemini, and I really love it. I really like their cadence, and I really like their tone. So go find them. Of course, I will link all of their shit in the source notes, show notes, notes. So yeah, okay, let's get started. I didn't even tell you guys what this episode is about. It's about phrases, and this is going to be an ongoing series. Whenever I don't know what to do, I'm going to do the next letter in the alphabet. Anyway, so I'm going to start by telling you guys what colloquialisms are. Colloquialisms are turns of phrase not used in formal conversation that can be varying between regions or groups of people. They're many times related to the culture of people of the region or the most common occupation of that area. They can be applied to situations or people, and most are derived from old world customs or traditions. Includes unique words, expressions, or even cliches spoken in specific social groups like teenagers, while colloquialisms are usually spoken by everyone in a particular geographic region. So, like, that's just so you know the difference between slang and colloquialisms. Jargon is most of the time technical terms used by people in a particular profession. People outside of those professions typically don't use those words in everyday speech. So it's like technical terms, industry speech, things like that. That's what jargon is. Just so we all know what things are. And just for further reference, in case anybody didn't know, because it took me a while to figure out the difference between these two things, and I like both of them. Etymology and entomology. Here's how to remember this, okay? Etymology is the study of like words and phrases and, you know, language. Entomology is the study of insects. So this is how I remember which is which. Insects have an N, and so does entomology. Entomology, insects. That's how I remember that, just so everybody knows. Yeah, okay. Anyway, that's my helpful tip for the day. Because for some reason, that is something I could not remember. But that helps me remember. And I have a lot of little things like that in life. So if I think of more, I will give them to you guys. I'm here for all of that. I love those things. So etymology is words. Entomology is insects. All right. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to go through a whole bunch of the smaller ones that have shorter explanations. And then I'm going to go to the ones that I have like big blurbs on. Because I made some like bigger, expanded little bubbles. I said blubbles. Bubbles on some terms because they're more interesting and fun. And they have a lot of information and they're fun, okay? Fun. I'm going to kind of run through these. I'm not going to like give anything in between them. I'm just going to go through them. So a bitter pill to swallow and a hard pill to swallow describes something that is difficult to accept. The idiom first appeared in the 1600s as a pill to swallow. At the time, a pill was considered a foul thing to ingest and did not require a modifier. So those two phrases mean the same thing, and they didn't mean a literal pill when the term was coined. Pill meant like something difficult. So the classic explanation behind the phrase sleep tight, and this is one of my favorite ones and one of the first etymology deep dives I did when I was like 19. It relates to the medieval rope-strung beds. These beds, instead of springs, used ropes that needed to be tied tightly under the mattress to keep it securely in place. Hence the phrase, sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite refers to the fact that the beds were stuffed with hay or straw, and bugs like to infest these types of materials. Interesting, I know, right? 40 winks is thought to be the product of Shakespeare. Wink was a common term used for someone closing their eyes for sleeping, and 40 was seen as a large but indeterminate number that gave ambiguity to a situation without being, like, too far-reaching. So, okay, so, like, my number that I use for everything is 37. I don't know why, but 37 is my fucking number that I use for everything. It's either that or 43, those two numbers. But in like Shakespeare's time, the number 40 was that kind of like, it's a big thing, but not so big that you can't picture it in your head. So 40 was like a reasonable number. Because you think about it, like, people could think in their head a couple dozen eggs. Like, they can visualize a couple dozen eggs. You know, that's around 40. So, not a couple dozen, but, a few dozen. No-brainer was only coined in the 1950s, contrary to what me and my husband both thought. Like, both of us, when I said this to him, I was like, hey, did you know that the term no-brainer was only coined in the 1950s? He was like, what the fuck? And I said, me too. Right? Incredible. Its first recorded use is from a comic in the Long Beach Independent called The Berries, with an E. It was next used in a report on an ice hockey game where the reporter wrote, he'd break in on a goalie and the netminder would make one of those saves that our manager coach Sid Abel calls a no-brainer. So the first time anybody used it in print, so all of my credit for all of this goes to this guy, Gary Martin, who has this website called phrases.org.uk. I'll link it, of course. But the whole website is dedicated to words and the turn of phrase and where they all come from and the history and tradition. I'm obsessed. So that's where all of this will come from. So like I said, this will be a series. This is just the A's. This is just the A portion of his list that he has of American phrases. Okay? These are all just ones that seem to have originated in America or gotten popular in America. This is incredible. I'm obsessed. And I really only picked the ones that I'm familiar with. I didn't pick any that I didn't recognize because I figured other people wouldn't recognize them either. But if anybody wants me to look into ones from other countries, I will totally do that. I'm so okay with being given a task. Please, someone give me direction. Anyway. I have to go to the next picture for this one. Ta-da! The term piece of cake has its earliest recorded usage in 1936 by the American poet and humorist Ogden Nash's Primrose Path. Cake is also commonly used as a term for something easy, as seen in other universally known phrases such as easy as cake or cakewalk. So that one you could probably figure out for yourself, but like the first recorded use was only in 1936 for that phrase, piece of cake. Like that to me is pretty cool. And you also oh, it's been around forever. It really hasn't. If it's only been around for less than 100 years. That's not a very long time. There are people older than that. An accident waiting to happen isn't found in print anywhere until 1905, which we were both astounded at also. I did all of my research for this in bed next to my husband, so I kind of was talking to him about it and getting his live reaction, and I was like, ooh, thanks. It was printed in a Kansas newspaper, the Lyons Daily News, Lyons. It said, okay, this is kind of long, so stick with me. This is a quote. We heard a man tell another man the other day that he stood around like an accident waiting to happen. Haven't you ever heard of some simple little device and then wondered why you never thought of that same thing? It seems that the phrase was being used colloquially in the Kansas area at the time, and then it spread with the expansion of the West. So, like, around 1905, the phrase, an accident waiting to happen, was only being used around Kansas, which I think is fucking cool. That a term that is used everywhere in print media and, movies, on the radio, in podcasts, obviously, stories all over, wasn't in print until 1905. Like, that's fucking cool. And it was in Kansas. I just think that's cool. All right, so let's all be ready for this one because I found things out. The phrase another day, another dollar comes from naval days when American sailors were only paid $1 for every day of work they did. So they commonly would remark that each day was the exact same and all they had to show for it was $1 at the end of each day. This is where I was kind of like, ugh! I literally gasped. It shows in print in this book called The Word I Will Not Say or Even Allude To of the Narcissus, A Tale of the Forecastle by Joseph Conrad. You can Google that if you want. Google Joseph Conrad and then look for the book that has Of the Narcissus. and you'll see what word I refuse to even allude to. It said something. Oh, I'm not sorry. I refuse to read a book. Once you see the name, you'll see why I refuse to read anything from it. I just can't. I don't care if it was like, no, no, we don't justify that word. Not now. Not ever, honestly, but like, especially not today. Not ever. Shh. Anyway, the common saying, more days, more dollars, did not give the usual comfort because the stores were running short. Conrad also wrote Heart of Darkness. So, yeah, that's how you can know who he is. It has since lost its nautical connotations and is used in everyday speak as just a normal phrase. Another day, another dollar, like when you're just done. Okay. So while the phrase "an offer he can't refuse" has been around for much longer than the movie that made it the most popular, its vast popularity and wide usage is attributed to the 1972 movie The Godfather and the book of the same name published in 1969. And before Mario Puzo used the phrase, it did not mean to do what I say or I'll kill you. In the 1934 film Burn 'Em Up Barnes, a character says, "I'll make her an offer she can't refuse," which implies that he will actually make her an offer of a large sum of money, which was a generous statement, not a threat. It was more like, "I'll make her an offer she can't refuse." Like, not, "I'll make her an offer she can't refuse." You know what I mean? Like, it's not, yeah. So Puzo appears to have taken a known phrase and used it as a way to show that the Godfather was being ironic in his apparent benevolence by offering a gift. So he wasn't being nice. He was being an asshole. So that's why he was offering it as a gift. It's like, I'm going to offer you the gift of doing what I say or you're going to die. The phrase actually ranks as the second most memorable line in any American movie next to, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." And since we're at the bottom of this picture, we're just going to work our way back up the page. So that's what's happening right now. Ta-da! A foot in the door has literal meanings in origin, and its first recorded use as such was in the American poet and playwright George Boker's work, Plays and Poems, in 1856. And he sang to his giddern of love and of war, with one foot in his stirrup and one in her door. We now use it figuratively to express the need for a way into either social or professional situations or introductions, but it was a literal way of sales in the early 1900s. Door-to-door salesmen would stick their foot into a prospective customer's front door to keep them from slamming it and keep their sales pitch going while the poor person was sitting there trying to crush toes. Like, that's my literal, actual worst nightmare, by the way, just so anybody knows, like somebody at my door trying to talk to me while I'm trying to close the door in their face. No, get the fuck away from me. No. Early figurative citations are from American political canvassers or salesmen, such as in this report from an application for civic funding in the Oakland Tribune in August of 1914. This is a conversation, so don't get confused. "All I'm asking is that you authorize the park department to go ahead." "Yes, but you are trying to commit us to an expenditure of $48,400 or more," said Baucus. "No, I'm merely asking that the first step be taken," answered Marmot. "You've got a mighty clever way of getting your foot in the door, and then we can't get it closed until the whole proposition is carried," said Turner. So that was the first time anybody had seen it in print. So I know this is the most exciting thing anybody could want to listen to today. Across the pond is a historical term that has quite a storied meaning behind it. So for a long time, a pond was a name given to any body of water, and then later the Atlantic Ocean was known as the herring pond. So John Dutton's letters from New England in 1686 said, "Tomorrow, if a gale present, we sail on for a new world. For so we call thy America. At my first arrival, I'll send an account of the wonders I met on the Great Herring Pond." So basically somebody in the 1600s was calling the Atlantic Ocean the Great Herring Pond when they were on their way over to Great America. It was later shortened to the Great Pond, and then later on shortened even more to the Pond. The first use of the term "the Pond" was in the Royal Gazette, which was the pro-British newspaper printed in New York by James Rivington in 1780. It said, "Then Jack was sent across the pond to take her in the rear, sir." All right, then. Interessante. We're We're going to go back to the last one. All right. So, all publicity is good publicity, or there's no such thing as bad publicity. A lot of their credit is given to Phineas T. Barnum, who's the American showman and circus owner. Everybody knows Barnum and Bailey, you know. He was basically his own publicist and would find any excuse or opportunity to show off and present his wares and his sideshows. He would literally just like stop people and be like, look at these things I have. He's like, Ariel, look at this stuff. Isn't it neat? Like legit like Ariel. It's so funny to me. It gained popularity among commonplace speech in the early 20th century, and the earliest print version was found in the U.S. newspaper, The Atlanta Constitution, in January of 1915. It says, all publicity is good if it's intelligent. The same idea, though, was actually expressed earlier by Oscar Wilde. It says, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. But the idea that at least people are talking about you is obviously widely disputed and up for much discussion between a lot of famous authors and a lot of people in general. Like, some people just don't want to be talked about. Some people are like, talk about me. Please talk about me. I need the attention. So, the most widely celebrated adapter of the phrase is the Irish Republican and self-proclaimed drinker with a writing problem who famously said, there's no such thing as bad publicity except your own obituary. Which I know Andrew will appreciate that one. So, this one's really interesting to me. So while we may think of air quotes as something that has probably been around in some way, shape, or form for most of recorded time, the first actual record of someone using them and it being noted by someone else was in the 1927 edition of Science magazine. This is kind of a weird quote. So, some years ago, I knew a very intelligent young woman who used to inform us that her bright sayings were not original by raising 2 fingers on both hands above her head with the first and second finger pointing up, and her fingers were her quotation marks, and they were very, very easily understood. So this girl would put up air quotes around these things that she said weren't her originals, or some weird sayings that she said. Who knows? Almost 80 years later, it was again recorded in the 1989 Spy magazine. When Bob and Betty described themselves in these ways, they raised the middle and forefingers of both hands momentarily, forming twitching bunny ears, air quotes, the quintessential contemporary gesture that says, we're not serious. So it's not given a name until the late 1980s, but it's obviously been used regionally in different places for way longer than that. So that's why I put that, like, it didn't have a name for the longest time, but, you know, it was being used. Like, people knew what it was. So, I've never made like a loud squeaky noise while researching anything until I started reading this page. I literally like freaked out. It was pretty funny. And he was like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, this is exciting. I love this. So the phrase an arm and a leg has no actual concrete history. It's one of those phrases where like some guy heard someone tell the pub keeper at an inn about this time his aunt met this man. It's literally one of the snipes of etymology. Like, people don't know where it came from. So the lore is that old painters used to charge different prices for different sized paintings based on what was in the painting. A head and shoulders painting, what was the cheapest option, and therefore the most popular for common folk to get. Then the arms portrait, which was a bit more expensive, and the most pricey of all was the legs and all portrait. While portrait painters did charge more for large paintings, there is actually no hard evidence to suggest that there was the phrase, that this is where the phrase actually came from. It's recorded historically, actually more recent, and it comes after World War II. The American publication The Long Island Independent in December of 1949 said that food editor Beulah Carney has more than 10 ideas for the homemaker who wants to say Merry Christmas and not have to cost her an arm and a leg. So they were using it to like describe things that a homemaker could use. So it's suggested that the phrase has been around for quite a long time, and it originated because an arm and a leg are 2 things that you would obviously never sell unless at an exorbitant price, and that no one could offer that price, which is why someone charging a crazy amount for something is saying it's an arm and a leg, because it's like, I would never pay that. It's the same as saying I would never take money for my arm and my leg. That's not something I would give. But the weird, grim reality is that at the time it became popular right after World War II, many soldiers were actually returning home from the war and were missing limbs. So the fact that this phrase was becoming a colloquial term in America at that time shows just how insensitive Americans were to differently able people. And still are. So let's be so fucking for real right now. They still are horrible. A more likely origin for the phrase are both of the "I would give my right arm" and "even if it takes a leg," which are both coined in the 19th century, and it could be that they were just melded together to get an arm and a leg. Those two phrases were both semi-popular, in the 19th century, so they think that maybe they could have taken them and, like, smooshed them together to make that one phrase. So I think this one's really cute. This was actually the first one that I saw. So, upsy daisy. It's one of the most commonly used phrases in all cultures, actually. And it has many different regional variations, but they all mean about the same thing, which is a phrase used when helping a small child up from the ground. There's kind of a lot of different variations on upsy daisy. There's upsy daisy, upsy daisy, upsy daisy, oopsie daisy, oopsie daisy, and hoopsie daisy. Chloe Robinson, I think that's how you say his first name, wrote The Dialect of Leeds and Its Neighborhood, which was a compendium of slang and neighborhood terms used in Leeds in England area, maybe, around and leading up to 1862, has its first recording usage in its common form, saying, "Upsa daisy, a common proclamation when a child in play is assisted by a spring leap from the ground." So that was like, they were recorded common slang in that area, which is pretty fucking cool that someone was like, here, let's write down. It was at their time, like Urban Dictionary for the area, which is cool because, like, if you're going into that area or you're going to work in that area, you might want to know what people are saying. That would be very helpful. It is believed to be the source for the phrase whoopsie-daisy, which originated in America, and the first known printing of which was in the New Yorker in 1925, which I like that they're connected. It's cute. Above my pay grade, this is another military reference. It has both literal and figurative meaning. It is believed to have literal origin in the U.S. military, where pay is based on merit and rank, where this was later extended to many federal employees where pay was based on merit or grade. So the first use when no actual pay was involved was in 1965 in Dr. Sandy by British author Margaret Malcolm. This isn't like an ordinary marriage, sweetie. With royal families involved, it's as much a treaty as anything else. The politics are above my pay grade, but even I know everything could fall apart in a blink. And it didn't appear regularly in newspapers until the 1970s, though. So people were saying it, but it wasn't like a commonly used writing phrase yet. Because you'll notice things are said widely. There's two ways things go. They either are said a lot in a region or a country or something, and then it bleeds into the writing and, newspaper articles and interviews and stuff, because people say it in interviews, and so then people see it and they read it and they start saying it. Or it's in writing, like a lot of it comes from Shakespeare or older authors, really prolific authors. People see things in books, or they would see things in poems or in writings in different publications, and then they would start using them in their normal vernacular, so then it would pick up and it would go around the area or whatever, which you can see that happen around now, not even just online, like in person. There's kids that I work with who will say the most random shit. Like, there was some kid that I worked with who he had worked in restaurants most of the time, so he said heard all the time. Like, a chef says something to you and you say heard, it means you heard what they said. You say heard, chef. Like, you heard that. Well, he would say it to everything we said. We don't work in a kitchen, so it was kind of like, bro. No, like, it got so annoying. And then the other kids started saying, and it was like, oh my God. Like, things like that happen. And it's so funny how, like, things like that will happen unironically. I will say things to make fun of my kids, and then I will start saying them in normal conversation, and I'll be like, bitch, why are you saying this? Oh, bruh. I say that constantly, 24/7. And it started out as a joke. It started out as me making fun of my kids. Nope, I say it all the time now. Dope. Same with dope. I say it 24/7. They hate it. Everyone hates it. I don't care. I love it. I'll get to my last one now. Since I'm just like rambling about things I like to say. Is happy as a clam is actually not the full phrase, which is as happy as a clam at high water, which makes sense because at high tide, clams are away from predators, which of course would make anyone happy. The first recorded citation of the long version was found in the U.S. newspaper The Bangor Daily Whig and Courier in December of 1841. It says, your correspondent has given an interesting and undoubtedly correct explanation of the expression as happy as a clam at high water. The shortened version only works because if you look at an opened clam, they look really excited, like a Pac-Man. They look like they're smiling. So you know you're happy as a clam. The first recorded citation is from a frontier memoir, The Harp's Head, Legend of Kentucky, in 1833. It never occurred to him to be discontented. He was happy as a clam. These claims are disputed when you study the correspondence of General Robert E. Lee. Even though exact letters stating this phrase can't be found, it's found in one of his biographical novels that someone wrote about him, that people overheard and knew of him saying happy as a clam in his correspondences, because he wrote a lot of letters, like a lot of letters. The expression was well enough known in the USA by the late 1840s for it to have been included in John Russell Bartlett's Dictionary of Americanisms, which I want to find. That sounds really fucking interesting. It's a glossary of words and phrases usually regarded as peculiar to the United States, which I really want this book now. And it was published in 1848. As happy as a clam at high water is a very common expression in those parts of the coast of New England where clams are found, which that's like, okay, yeah, we get it. And then in 1948, the Literary Messenger in Richmond was like a small literary magazine. It stated that the phrase was familiar to everyone. They interviewed somebody in the area and they asked, have you heard the phrase happy as a clam? And they said, yeah, that's pretty familiar to everybody. And they're like, okay, sorry. We thought that was not. Like, some of these, like, they didn't have any, like, not integrity, but they were just like, what's the story? Tell me. Give me the scoop. Let's go. Like, they were just like all business, no jokes. They were like, tell me what's going on. I want to know. I love it. But that's the episode. The next, if I do another one of these, it'll be either B's and C's or just B's. And we might go through all of them. We might look at some of the ones that were coined in England or in other countries. I'm not very good at speaking French. Pretty okay at Spanish. Other languages, nope. They all sound like I am having trouble breathing. So that, we should stick with the English-speaking countries just so I don't butcher someone else's culture and language, just for respect's sake. Happy Black History Month, guys. Like I said, my main way of celebrating it this month, besides giving platform as much as I can, wherever I can, is featuring small BIPOC artists on the podcast, which I'm going to do as much as I can. It's just hard for me to find people without like going out and searching. I like to find them organically, or if people send me suggestions. So if you have a suggestion for a small artist you would like me to feature, please send me their TikTok or YouTube or some form of something, please, because this shit's hard. Your girl's busy. Almost done with this one project I'm working on. So that'll be really exciting. We're really excited. Yay! Not much else. You can find me on the platforms and the socials. Hi Bitch, Bye Bitch. And hopefully we'll have something exciting for you next week. Maybe I'll see if I can like go and do something and like record me doing something instead of it being like me sitting here talking like a boring bitch. Okay, I love you guys, and I will talk to you when I talk to you. I love you. Thank you. Bye.
You dumb fucking bitch.
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 You bitch! The mega bitch!
Heinous bitch is the
Fucking bitch.
Bitch.
You're a bitch!
The bitch is back.
If you've ever thought about making your own podcast, I highly recommend using Buzzsprout. You can find a link in the show notes. And once you're there, they kind of explain everything for you. And it's really pretty cheap, honestly. They give you all kinds of tips and tools on how to increase listeners, how to promote your show, and on monetization. If you have any other questions, they are super responsive. They get back to you within a day, if not like an hour. I use Buzzsprout, and it gives me the ability to host my podcast on basically every single podcast hosting site and app. It's great. I love them. So I'm going to continue to use them. And if you are interested, you should definitely look into them. Like I said, there's a link in the show notes.